Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Captain Shaq here, and welcome back to Empire War: The Remake Mod. Today, we're going to talk about some lessons learned, some of them painful, and how to get into the Remake Mod. The features, the game mechanics that are a little quirky, that don't really maybe make sense right off the bat, that you don't want to learn the hard way. So we're going to go through some of those mechanics and explain them and give you the heads up before you start your campaign. We will be using the Rebel Alliance as the example, because that's what I've been streaming over on Twitch, and that's where most of the experience is coming from. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so we've loaded up a campaign that is currently in progress. I'm playing as the Rebel Alliance and working slowly to secure my bottom border here. I've pushed out from Hoth, taken Bespin, moved down to Polis Massa. I'm about to start a ground invasion for Mustafar. So we've got a nice little start going here. We've even got Sullust. This was a stream from yesterday. Let's go ahead and turn on all the things. These buttons, they've always been there for Empire at War. They basically give you more information on the Galactic map. I highly recommend that you just turn them on and leave them on. So one of the things that you're going to run into, let's go ahead and start a ground invasion, is how shields work. Now, this is going to be one of those stark contrasts to the base game. I'm just going to grab the Sullust fleet, these are ground forces, and move them in. Now, there's a lot of things that have changed in the Remake Mod. Like, for instance, when you're building units, you don't build them individually, you build them as regiments. When you're doing an invasion, you're bringing in, well, proper regiments like tank regiments, artillery regiments like this one right here for the CIS, these sub-factions. Don't underestimate, by the way, the sub-factions. They can get really, really aggressive. In another campaign that I'm currently playing, the sub-faction some of the sub-factions have actually managed to expand in my other game and are actually fighting back elements like the Empire. The Republic hardliners have actually managed to expand even farther. I think they've even taken Lunar in my other campaign. So keep an eye on them. They can be a little bit brutal. So let's go ahead and move our fleet over here and begin the invasion of Mustafar. All right, welcome to the planet of Mustafar. This is actually quite a cool map. You can go across this water right here. It takes a little while, but here, let's get into the mechanics. All right, so welcome to the invasion of Mustafar. Now, well, the first mechanic that I think a lot of people have been having an issue with is how bombing runs work and how orbital strikes work. Now, keep this in mind. This is for 4.0, the initial release, and a lot of this stuff is probably going to change as they get more and more feedback from a larger player base. Now that we all have our hands on it and been giving it a go. I know I've had a number of the devs hanging out in the Twitch chat, and we've been having discussions about design philosophy and some of these mechanics and how they kind of work and kind of don't. Many of them take away a lot of the options that I feel like players have, especially in the early game, in how they fight these. So you get a lot of just line battles. But let's talk about those bombing runs. Let's go ahead and unpause. We're going to let that bombing run charge up. One of the great changes is how speeder bikes work. They're now using the aircraft mechanics, so they move smoothly and fast, so you can use them as proper scouts. They don't do that thing where they fly a little bit and then you tell them to go in a different direction and they stop, slowly turn, and then move again, which is how the base game works. And I know it's frustrated a lot of you guys. It's frustrated me for the last 15 years of playing Empire at War. All right, let's go ahead and move you. Let's get a better formation by just telling them, right-clicking and telling them to move here, so they all should form up and figure out where they're going. All right. Bombing run is just about charge. Now, at the beginning of a match, you have a limited amount of time. I believe it's like 3 minutes, but don't quote me on that. It isn't very long before you can't call in a bombing run. We grab our speeders and we send them over. We'll go find some targets and we'll order a bombing run. Now, there are two things that people are complaining about. There are actually two different issues. The first one is Y-Wings not showing up. That's because there's an issue with the model, as I'm told, and it just doesn't work. So there we go. We've got a couple of targets. Let's call in a bombing run. Bombing run has been called in. I think we have Y-Wings in orbit, so we may actually run into that bug. There it is. You can't see the unit. So hopefully this gets patched up soon and fixes it. We can't see the unit. They're not actually there. There's actually a cool mechanic in 4.0 where, depending on the bombers that you have in orbit, those are the ones that you will get during the bombing run, and the different bombers have different stats and have different uses. So you want to actually choose what bombers you have in orbit to use them, right? But don't use Y-Wings right now because they're invisible and they won't actually do any damage. You can see there's a nice big, there's a huge enemy force here that I'm not going to be able to actually hit and get any use out of my bombing runs. And in a moment, in a couple of minutes, I'm going to lose the ability to even call in bombing runs. That means we're not going to get that orbital support. Even though we won the orbital battle, we're not going to be able to call in any of that backup. Just like, if I start fast forwarding this, We'll let this run for a little bit. There goes the Y-Wings that are invisible, flew over. They didn't do anything. They didn't drop any bombs. They didn't use their turrets or ion cannons. So at the moment, can't really use that unless we have other bombers in the fleet. But there is a reason why you can't use bombing runs after a few minutes, and that's because any base...
Bombing run available.
Bombing run available. Yeah, I can't really use it. Any bombing run, or any base that has an actual base on the ground, right? Not just the outpost, but a proper base. They get a shield generator. That's not a thing that you build separately. Every planet will get a shield generator as long as there's that main base built. So it's the second building on the build queue. And you get a shield generator. The shield generator doesn't work against bombing runs for some reason for the first 3 minutes, I guess, so you have an opportunity to use them. And then, nope, you can't use them anymore until you take the shield generator or the power generator out, one or the other.
Planetary shield on.
Okay, there's the sound effect. I went ahead and fast forwarded a bit so we could get to the point where it says planetary shield up. That means that we can no longer call in bombing runs anywhere on the map until we take out the planetary shield generators, which will probably be located inside the enemy base with the new maps. Meaning if you've able to actually take out the generator, you've basically won the day. Now, I've already gone and called in a artillery unit. I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit. I love the sound effect for the artillery, but we're going to have to turn that down. Build cap is normally set to 2 on most maps that I have tried, but you can capture a third site to get a third unit, a third regiment in the field. Now, why did they do this? Why can't we use our bombing runs? We fought over that orbit. We took the orbit. Why is it that they made shield generators take up the entire planet and made it so we can't call these in? Well, it's not because of bombing runs.
Ready to roll.
It's because they made the orbital strike an I win button. This right here will kill everything within that region just about. I actually used this on a base and it managed to miss the building even though it was pretty much centered on top of it. But for the most part, this will kill everything in the region. So to keep the players from doing that, they've created the shield generator that covers the entire planet. It's a weird catch-22. It's like, yes, this is kind of cool and it looks very cinematic when it's used, but it's basically useless for the player until they have already won the battle. So that's why you can't use these two features that you're very used to using. Being the attacker, this is the only 2 advantages as the attacker that you get. And in this instance, you don't get those advantages anymore. So, another thing to keep in mind, if you're having a lot of trouble cracking some planets, artillery basically has map-wide ranges. It is really far range. And so you can sit there and kind of basically just shell the enemy to death until you win. So hopefully we get an artillery update that makes these a little bit more interesting to use because, to be honest, sitting here just out of range of the enemy base and doing a ping and finding the enemy or sending in my bikes and then just waiting for my artillery to win the day isn't the most compelling gameplay. So hopefully we see some maybe lowering the range on this so it's actually invading or making the AI a bit more aggressive, because if you'll notice, they're not really coming at us. They might send a couple of pokes here and there, but they're not really attacking us. And this seems to be the case, at least for this faction, because I've been attacked by the criminals far more than the Empire in this campaign. It's sadly become more and more of a thing. Yep, our bikes are still alive. We'll just move them down here. Keep giving targets for the artillery. The artillery will auto-fire at whatever it can see that's in range until their vehicles are dead, and then I can walk right in. You can bring in more units that can do this job a little bit more interestingly, like the heavy armor that I've actually got in reserve. If I take this point, it's actually how I took this planet the first time, and that was a pretty fun fight. So the next thing that I wanted to bring up is how, and this is a base game mechanic, this is line of sight. So a lot of times when you're using, say I don't have this artillery, let's turn the artillery off, and I was using, you know what we'll do? I'll go grab that third spot real quick. We'll go load these guys up in the transport, and we'll run over, and we'll grab this point up here. That way we can bring in an armored unit. We're gonna talk about line of sight. But first, let's move up. Now, some of you people have been confused or complaining about the various units all going the same speed. Infantry and vehicles all move the same speed, except for the speeder bikes and the air units. And that is a choice that the developer has made. A lot of units, at least for the Rebellion, has the sprint ability, which does temporarily make them faster for a short amount of time. How much faster that is as he cruises across But he goes the same speed. Yep, there he goes. His speed has been used up. His sprint has been, and now he goes at the speed that everything else in the game moves at. B1 battle droids, APCs, tanks, artillery, doesn't matter. I believe this was a change, and I don't have this confirmed, so take this with a grain of salt. I believe this was a change to make it so that units will move in formation, and they won't outrun each other. Yeah, so that's a thing that people are like, why can't, you know, my units go faster? Why is everything crawling? Well, that's kind of why. It's to encourage, I think, formation fights and line battles like this. So, which is a that's a double-edged sword in the, let's move up here, in the design of this mod, because it also means that flanking becomes much harder, especially when you only have like a short burst of speed from, say, an APC like this. But we'll grab this, we'll grab our anti-tank unit, and then we'll start moving up. And we'll talk about line of sights. There we go. Weirdly, on this map, though I've captured this like supply point, it is not a reinforcement point. I actually have to come back here and drop this armored regiment, this bunker buster regiment over here. Go ahead and move you. We're not going to deploy you guys. We just want these support units to kill this guy. It doesn't seem like we're actually managing to hit him. We get him? Yeah, we got him. Okay. So there's our heavy unit. I kind of love this. Everybody was saying that this looks like a, what is it, KV-2. It's basically the T4B chassis, and then they slapped on a bigger turret. This kind of stuff, I love. Some people were like, it looks too much like World War II. I saw that in the comments a lot. That's on purpose. Star Wars was originally very much inspired by, especially the dogfighting, World War II footage. If you look at some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, talking to Lucas about how he kind of came up with a style for dogfights. And I love that this mod is kind of carrying that on. This is a very cool unit. So, all right, we're going to move up. Talking about line of sight. Now, you might be, I have no idea what decided to just run. Oh, yep, that's what moved in one of my APCs. Sometimes your units will decide that they desperately need to chase something. Like my Grenadier. I don't know why he's up here. I didn't send him up here, but here he is. Didn't send that APC either, but they just decided to chase. It just kind of happens. Go ahead and move you back. We'll move you with the rocket trooper that's back there. Oh yeah, he's got mines, by the way, and they're pretty wonderful. So don't forget that your rocket troops do have mines. So, line of sight. This is the part that I wanted to talk about. If you think you're going to get a range advantage by using the ping ability, right? I want to see what's over here. I've got, say, these big-ass tanks, and I know the enemy's got tanks over here. And if I scan, I will be able to see farther. They can't see me, right? But I can see them because I'm using my ability to scan. That's not how Empire at War works. If you can see the AI, they can see you and they can return fire. I believe it's actually any unit that fires shows up. So yeah, if you're not ready for a fight, if your units are crossing a bridge or something, especially that Bespin map, and you decide, you know what, I'm going to do a ping, I'm going to see where the enemy is on the other side of this bridge that I'm currently crossing, you may have just opened yourself up to a crap ton of return fire. So a lot of times, it's better to not ping in front of you until you are in formation. We are not in formation right now, and ready to fire. So keep that. It's a weird quirk. I think it's an Empire War limitation that, you just will not have that line of sight advantage. You can't have a range advantage, mind you. If these vehicles, I mean, obviously the artillery is a great example of this. It's got a great range advantage. But, we're still cruising up. Let's get the rest of the units up here. We know there's enemies somewhere back here, but the moment we can't see them, now watch what happens when I ping, if they're still there. We'll move a ping unit up. We've got a little bit of a light resistance. Oh, they can see us.
It's a sniper.
Yep, start firing. You guys lock it down. And notice how they popped up outside of our line of sight? I'm guessing, I did ping and you can kind of get an edge of it. It's probably because they're firing, so they show up. Same deal with them. So if you're firing, you've now kind of given up your position and you can take fire. And it creates those really weird, oh man, we're losing rebels like crazy. Turn on the artillery. Can't artillery strike. Take the artillery out. Keep pressing, we have to take the artillery out. All right, next up, we're gonna talk about fighters and why people are complaining about not having enough money. We're gonna send a fleet over to Utapau. This is not a battle that I would recommend starting on your own. Oh crap, I actually needed these for this example. Hopefully we've got a few of them in the fleet, because this right here is, we go to the fighter queue and we look over at this custom ship that was made just for this mod. This is the PT-1 gunship squadron. It has HE weapons. It says high explosive missiles to quickly wipe out large groups of lightly armored craft. Well, that's a real mechanic that you need to be aware of, or you will be very, very, very disappointed when you start noticing that a random group of drones of separatist fighters are wiping out anything they target. Specifically dealing with the Lucrehulk. I believe it's a special mechanic for that ship, that one ship, because it's known to have so many fighters in the lore. But if you're unawares, you may be really pissed off.
Choose your reinforcements.
So we'll bring in our sensor ship.
We've located the enemy.
That'll give us a view of basically the entire map. Actually, move up a little bit more. And I will show you the hard lesson learned about swarms. Okay, we have it in sensor range. Let's go ahead and pause. We're gonna zoom over here. There is a special icon that looks just like a very particular fighter. Actually, it's very hard to see. It is actually three. I thought that was the, what is it called? The Tristran? Nope, that's the ship in E that looks just like it. Anyways, this is the droid assault wing. Look at how many fighters are in this. Now, if you're in a normal fight and you're thinking, okay, that's 2 fighter squadrons, that's a fighter squadron, that's a fighter squadron, maybe that's a gunship squadron because there's only 4 of them. Actually, those are bombers. But you think those are just a couple of normal standard fighters. That is not the case. Look a little bit closer and you will notice there are a ton of models in this. There are literally hundreds. In those 2 squadrons, there are 176 models. I don't know why it's 76. I'm sure it's a lore thing specifically. I thought it was 75. Per squadron. That means there's 300 fighters there. 350, what is that? 357? Something like that? Fighters. It's ridiculous. And there are so many, and it's a mixed squadron. That basically means that these 2 squadrons are good at killing whatever they want. Because there's bombers, I believe, mixed into there. Yeah, vulture droids, tri-fighters are in there. It's a mess. And the only unit that's described, don't send your X-Wings at it, don't send your anti-fighter ships into it. You're gonna need to send, I don't have them, those ships that I was showing you, the PT-1s. They have the high explosive in space. I'm not a huge fan of this, in the least. And if anything, just give it more squadrons. Don't make it a special unit that is going to run around and just kill everyone's stuff. Yeah, you can't send X-Wings at it. You can't send TIE fighters at it. They're just going to get wiped out because they're going to be outnumbered 200 to 1. It's ridiculous. So, anyways, that's the thing. I love this model, by the way. Isn't that gorgeous? The Lucrehulk just looks so freaking good. So good. Now, I will unpause this. If you want a heads up on one of the probably most important aspects of the game, bombers, specifically anything that can pierce shields, is king in here. Some of these ships have so much in the way of shielding, they're almost impossible to take down without ion weapons. And some of them, like the frigate class, particularly some that are a part of the criminal faction, are so damn tanky because they're so small and they're so hard to hit. That you're gonna want torpedoes and bombers, right? So don't deny those. Make sure you're using a ton of them, especially if you can take out shield generators. Yeah, super key. If you, especially fighting the Empire, right? The Empire has quite the weakness to bombers, which is great because that's how it is, you know, in the lore. It's how we always see the Galactic Civil War. Now, one of the things that people have been complaining about is coming out of battles at 0 credits. Over and over and over. I don't have any money. My money's gone every time I fight. And that's because when you bring in a fleet, we'll start a bit of a battle here. I don't have any entrance. I'm probably not going to win this. We're just going to drop out of hyperspace kind of behind this and engage this ship. Bring in our artillery ships from the back so we can kind of cover the fleet and see if we can start chewing them up. We're going to go heavy into support. As soon as I bring in, I'm the Rebel Alliance, damn near every ship that I have. Actually, I think every ship that I have minus like anything bigger than a Corvette has fighters. See those Y-Wings just come out? See the Z95s that came out here? See our Cutlasses that are dropping? These are all bombers, by the way. Every one of these ships has a squadron attached to it. If you lose a member of the squadron, you're going to pay for it. in your Galactic reserve during this battle. Watch this income. If you watch any of my streams, every time that I'm attacked, every one of those defensive battles that I was fighting, I found myself leaving the battle at 0 credits because they're big fights. The enemy isn't messing around. They're sending a lot at us, and that means that those fighters are getting killed. Not terrible, it's gonna happen, but the fact that it happens so often, we got attacked almost every 2 to 3 minutes, we would be constantly broke, constantly out of resources. And because bombers are so important, like look at the shield amount on this. I'm just starting to get through it. I'm at 9,000 now. By the end of this battle, I will probably be down to 2,000, maybe even less than that. So it's a thing to be aware of. That's why you don't have any cash in your bank account. You gotta be kind of sparing with the bombers. And since normal fighters have very, very little health compared to their gunship counterpart, they become... They're just gonna die. They're gonna die a lot. Unless you keep in the back of the fleet. Go ahead and turn you guys. Go ahead and activate. Let's go ahead and kick on the repairs from our Nebulon Bs. You can stack these, by the way, so you can... I'm not gonna say that you would abuse this, but you can definitely make your ships a bit more tanky. Unless they're getting one-shotted by 350 fighters that are in there. You're going to quickly notice that all of our fighters here are going to get deleted. I'm going to see if I can pull these bombers out and get them committing. They might as well do damage to the enemy. Yes, but this is what you want. You want those torpedoes. They're super... Torpedoes, concussion missiles are super effective in this. Because, I mean, especially fighting the Rebellion. If you can take out the shields on these assault classes, you basically just neutralize that entire ship because they are their shields. That's their strength. We need to take out those concussion missiles or we're going to be in deep trouble. Let's start focusing that down. You guys, I don't know what you're firing at, but it's probably the wrong thing, so go ahead and start firing. So, that's the deal with those giant mobs. If they decide to target any of my corvettes, they will be able to kill them very, very, very quickly. At the moment, I'm not actually sure what they're gunning down. They're going after a corvette. Maybe. Let's fast forward and see. Yeah, they're taking out the artillery now. So, we'll just fast forward. You can watch that mob of fighters just go through and annihilate every unit that it targets. It's not my favorite mechanic, honestly, because it just adds in another element to starfighters that isn't really necessary. They could just have maybe 4 or 5 extra squadrons that come out of this thing, and then the player would be able to figure out, okay, my X-Wings, my TIE Fighters, my Interceptors, those are something that could start to counter that, especially like my A-Wings. But in this formation of 100-something models, it just makes them a horde that, only HE, high explosive in space, can do something about? Not a huge fan. It's a very, very odd choice. Alright, welcome to the planet of Sullust. We've begun an invasion to take the world, to free it from occupation of the criminal faction. Now, one of the things that we need to do on this world, if you're not aware, lava will kill your units. This is not a new mechanic. This is in the base game for Empire at War. But it is something that you need to be aware of. That's not what we're here to test. We need to go over and attack the shield generator, which I believe is somewhere up here in the north, because I want to show you guys one of the issues with using the bombing runs and the orbital strikes in this. Now, one thing that you should be aware, it is not a bug, at least not one that I don't think it was designed this way on purpose. There are certain infantrymen that cannot get into vehicles, and that is your anti-armor soldier, who's got the rocket launcher, and your supply officer, he's called a pioneer in this, but he's basically your supply officer. He's got deploy smoke screen, and he's got ammo crates, which he can drop on the ground to give everyone around him, all the infantry around him, not vehicles, a buff. But they cannot go into the transports. Neither can the mortar team, which becomes kind of a problem on planets where the wildlife or lava or weather can kill them, and maybe tornadoes or whatnot. So that's not a bug, or maybe it is a bug in this version. They're going to fix it, but at the moment, that's just, they don't work that way. So you're not going to be able to do it. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to go find that shield generator. And why focusing the shield generator really isn't most of the time an option. Be aware, Mandalorians seem to be really, 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 really overtuned at the moment. Damn. All right, well, we have located the shield generator, and of course, it is pretty far behind enemy lines. It's literally past their base and off here into the corner. Now, you might be thinking, hey, I'll just do a bombing run on it. No big deal. Well, the bombing run isn't going to do a damn thing to it. Ah, we got the Y-Wing bug again, which is weird because I didn't think I put a Y-Wing in that fleet. So we're not even going to get a bombing run on that. But you are not going to do any damage to it.
Reporting.
Because of... oh, we're actually taking some hits. Not great.
Forward.
Not great. We're actually going the wrong way, too. We need to go back the other way. Let's go back this way. By the way, these towers are anti-air, so if you know the enemy has built these defensive towers, don't bother bringing an air squadron in. These things cover about a quarter of the map, easily covering an entire base, and some bases will have multiples of them. So they basically shut down an entire regiment on their own.
I can get there right away. Initiating transit.
Okay, go ahead and sprint. Let's see if we can manage to push any of the units through. There's a good chance we're not going to be able to get through this. But let's try it. Let's try it. Come on, keep running, boys. Keep running, keep running. We're trying to flank. We're trying to push in. We managed to get past the line. We're getting up to the shield generator. Once we get there, we'll deploy forces
Go ahead.
and open fire.
Yes, Commander. Heading out.
And it might be your initial reaction to go and engage the shield generator. You know, you're trying to do a Hoth battle. You're going after the shield generator to shut it down. But what you will find, even with tank crackers, to be honest, even with the heavy stuff, because the orbital strike is so powerful, you can't have it.
Cannons charged. Following your lead.
It's so strong, it covers so much territory, and we don't have it charged yet, that you can't have it. That you're gonna sit there and chew through these. Now, most of the time, the shield generator, I don't know why the AI is not actually attacking us. They might be coming this way now. Bombardment's ready. Well, you notice how much health this has. I have an entire regiment firing at this thing, and most of the time it's well defended and the enemy actually is sitting on top of it. In this case, they're just sitting in the middle of the map doing nothing. This isn't this may be a bug in the current version, but the AI seems very not aggressive. Oh, they're starting to wake up. They're starting to come this way. But yeah, the shield generators, I believe this is with a nerf too, as of the last few days. Have a freaking metric ton of health. So don't expect to sneak in there with a regiment and try to flank and take these out unless you're completely ignored by the enemy faction. In this case, funny enough, I didn't think I'd actually survive long enough. I assumed they'd just walk all over me as soon as I try to do this. But no, this actually worked. Weird. So I guess we're gonna be able to see the orbital strike in a second.
Planetary shield down.
T2B.
I don't have the ping ability. So what I will do is turn around a single one of my light tanks. Get them facing this way.
Let's move out.
Let's go ahead and call it in. You do have to have line of sight. There it is. Bombardment, in round, and now. I do love the visual of this. I don't think making it an I win button actually enhanced the gameplay at all. I think it actually removed some of the more interesting options that the player attacking has. You know, that clutch, well-timed precision strike could change the flow of battle. The orbital strike is just a way of celebrating a victory, like this. That's all this is. You know, there's nothing tactical about that. Also, we're gonna be here for a minute. It's gonna take a while. It does look awesome though. And this is, and on the Rebel Alliance, it feels very weird as the Rebel Alliance indiscriminately melting and turning the planet to glass. Even for the Empire, this would be a pretty extreme response to a simple invasion.
Let's go. We keep going. This way.
Not that they didn't do it. We get that a lot in the lore. You know, Kamas was burned. But still, and it still didn't even kill the building. Oh man, okay, yep. So, there you go. It's not just you, I find it very strange too. Let's get back to it.
Reinforcements.
All right, we're
available.
back into that same campaign. I'm gonna go ahead and pause it. We're gonna look around the map a little bit. What you'll find as let me turn on all the things on here. There's my heroes. So one of the things that I have found is that there are no permanent deathed heroes. I've lost 2 in a battle against the Empire in the north. The only 2 battles I've actually fought against the Empire. Every other fight I've had in about 8 hours of playing in this campaign. 8 hours? No, probably closer to 4. I think we only streamed for 4 hours in this particular campaign. I've only fought the Empire twice. I have fought the criminal faction at least maybe 12 times, 12, 13 battles, and at 40 minutes of battle, that adds up. That's a lot of time fighting one faction in the Galactic Civil War. Bit frustrating to only fight one faction, but you'll notice I've got 2 heroes that are recharging. It's because hero death is not permanent, and you will find that the AI takes huge advantage of this. I have killed the Hutt, I have killed Zan, I've killed these heroes half dozen times in this early campaign while testing. So it's just gonna be a thing that you're gonna be living with, but don't feel bad about using your heroes, about throwing them into the wall. Send Akbar in to take territory. There's no reason not to. If you lose him, he'll just go on a timer. The only thing that you have to worry about is your diminished force strength. If you lose Akbar, you're gonna lose one of your capital ships up here. That being said, as the Empire, you get Vader, you get Tarkin, both in ISDs. You get a number of just really heavy capital shipped heroes that you're basically just getting over and over again for free. So hopefully we see some kind of system, or maybe they increase the timers, because I can't tell you how many times I have fought over Bespin specifically against the same exact criminal heroes over and over again. All right, welcome to the world of Kenyon, where we have a nice big, what looks like open field. If I take a look out there and see what the planet looks like. I do start with 2 drop zones, meaning I have a little bit of a choice on where I want to bring my forces in, if I want to bring them slightly to the north or right down here to the south. But you will notice I've only got a unit capacity of 2. Now, I can get it to 3 by capturing one of the other points, but it seems that this is more the rule than not. You'll get 2. Maybe you'll get a 3rd spot to take over. Bespin, I know, is only a 2-fer. You're not going to get 3. I know we fought over that a few times, and I don't think I ever got 3 there. And this becomes a bit of an issue. The reason being, I love the regiment system, but there definitely is a restriction in what the player is capable of doing here. If you have 2 units, that means that you could have infantry and you could have an armored group, but that's it. If you want artillery, you're going to have to give up one of those. So now you've got, what, armor and just the artillery? Or infantry and just the artillery? There's no room for a 3rd. So if you bring in an air unit, this is a bit frustrating. If you bring in an air unit, you've now taken up one of your regiment spots. If they have air defense, which can take in the form of ground forces or a turret, they have shut down one of your regiments completely. That means they're basically useless. And that is not a great feeling when you have more options removed. So some of the complaints that I've seen in some of the comments, this is a thing. The developers are kind of aware of it. I don't know how it's going to change or how it's going to be modified, but at the moment, it is a bit frustrating that just you have maybe 3 if you manage to capture a 3rd point, and a lot of times you're just running around with 2 regiments and not a lot of control over what you can do with those at 2 regiments. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up today's video. I've got more notes. I could probably do a whole nother video talking about various mechanics and decisions that have been made in this one. This is, keep in mind, the first iteration of ground combat and space in a full campaign for the Remake Mod. It is, I think, out of the big 3 mods that are out there, or 3 mod teams, I should say, one of the youngest. And so they're coming up with all kinds of new and fun mechanics and experimenting with stuff. So keep bringing your feedback to the developers, keep playing, streaming, making video content, because it allows the developers to see how people are playing the game and what they think about the mod and where it's at. I am super excited for the future of this mod and all the other ones for Empire War. It's just more fun content for us to enjoy. So thank you, Remake devs, for creating such a cool mod that I get to play, enjoy, and I hope some of this feedback and some of these mechanics, it doesn't seem too negative. It is just my view or opinion on some of them, and that all I really want is for the game to just keep getting better and getting improved over the next, hopefully, 10 more years of Empire War. All right, everybody, I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.